Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking all the level 2 spells in Baldur's Gate 3 on a tier list. So there's actually some really good spells here. I'm going to give my thoughts after playing this game multiple times and doing a ton of different build guides. So first things first, we got Aid, which Aid is decent. It gives you temporary health points, which is always nice. More health helps out. In Baldur's Gate 3 it's all about surviving the enemy's attacks. Where this spell really shines is when you have a summon based party. So if you have a lot of if you have a necromancer, you can cast Aid on their summons and then they can survive more than one hit, which is actually really nice. Although it's the opportunity cost. When you use this, you use up a spell slot. So is the extra health really worth it? I would say it's probably an A tier, A for Aid, I guess. It's useful, especially on summon-based parties. And if you're able to replenish your spell slots, then it's not too bad. This really shines when you upcast it to give it a lot of extra health. It's not a bad spell overall. Next, we have Arcane Lock. This is not the most useful. It basically just locks a door for 10 turns and you can't unlock it. And anyone that has the spell Knock also can't unlock it. I'll put in the C tier because it's fun when you can pull off, let's say you lock enemies in a room. That allows you to not deal with them. It's a bit of crowd control, but not very often will you get benefit from this. Moonrise Towers is one of the few that I thought about where you can lock people into rooms and it's useful, but oftentimes you're just better off using better spells. So C tier. Next we got Bark Skin, which kind of a similar deal to Arcane Lock. It's just not as useful as a lot of the other spells that we have on this list. So I'm going to also putting Bark Skin on the C tier. It does have some use at times, but again, like some of these other spells, you're just better off to do other actions and even just attack. So yeah, C tier for that. Blindness is not bad. Blind just increases it's basically crowd control. This is actually a tough one because there's better crowd control out there for level 2. Actually, much better level 2 crowd control options. So I might just put blindness also in the C tier, maybe B tier. Blind can be good, but we can do things like darkness, which basically is that but better in a large area. So yeah, there's some uses, but just not as good as others. Blur. Now Blur is an okay spell. It increases your dodge chance, which is always nice. I think for some sorcerers or wizards, it's very useful at times to have that advantage on dodging attacks. So I'm gonna put that in the B tier, B for Blur, I guess. Next we got an interesting one with Branding Smite. Branding Smite unfortunately uses both an action and a bonus action and a level 2 spell. So it's not as awesome as like Divine Smite, which is straight up damage. What Branding Smite does is it prevents the target from turning invisible. Now, what's cool about Branding Smite is it's one of the few smites that you can actually use as a ranged attack. So, situational, I would say maybe B tier, usually often C tier. I don't often use Branding Smite. You're better off using Divine Smite oftentimes. But what's nice is if you have a target far away that you just don't want to turn invisible, you can ranged attack them with this. So the ability to be able to range attack Branding Smite's kind of nice. Calm Emotions. This is another one which is just, it's better to not use your level 2 spell slots in something like this, I would say. So Calm Emotions is probably just C tier. It does have some, actually, you know what? It does have an interesting use in dialogue at times. So Calm Emotions could be a B tier or top of C tier. But it's just, again, you're better off doing other things with a lot of these. Next, we got a fan favorite, Cloud of Daggers. Now, people are going to wonder, am I going to put this in the S tier? I don't use this as much as other spells, I must admit. I think Cloud of Daggers is nice, and you can actually get some interesting synergy. So let's say you have a druid, and they have plant growth on the ground, quarters movement speed. They can get people stuck in the Cloud of Daggers. You can also put an ice surface down, and then people will fall into the Cloud of Daggers. So it can be nice. It just does a 4d4 of slashing damage. So if it was piercing damage, that'd be a lot better because you could use some different synergies. I think it's probably the best spell that we got here. So Cloud of Daggers, it can be really nice early game damage. Put it in a doorway, you're laughing. People are going to run through it and damage themselves. So it is a pretty good spell. I just don't think it lacks what it needs to be an S tier spell. And a lot of people really love Cloud of Daggers because it is a really good early game damage option. But I think we got better things like Scorching Ray for level 2. I guess even Scorching Ray is not fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to put Cloud of Daggers in the A tier. It could be an S tier, especially if you like it. It's S tier, I guess. But yeah, we're going to put that A tier. Next, we got Crown of Madness. This is another spell that it's outshined by a lot of other options in the game. So This is a crowd control type attack. We got Crown of Madness, Enthrall, and Hold Person. Hold Person being the absolute best of these. I'm just going to put Crown of Madness probably in the C tier. Very, like, for C tier is very situational. B tier is somewhat situational. A tier is awesome. You should always use it. And S tier is definitely use it. So Crown of Madness, probably C tier. Next, we got an awesome spell. I don't see enough people putting respect on Darkness's name. What makes Darkness so great is it's basically like Globe of Invulnerability, but not. It's poor man's Globe of Invulnerability. I'm going to put it in the S tier. Now, if you have a Warlock on your team, Devil's Sight lets them see in Magic Darkness. So you can cast that. You have your Warlock do that's Eldritch blasting things inside of the darkness. And it doesn't even have to deal with other enemies at that point because darkness really screws up the enemy's AI. So this can be a lifesaver, especially if you have a teammate that's gone down really low in health. Throw them in the darkness. They might not be able to attack, but hey, at least they'll probably survive. So darkness can have a lot of shenanigans that you can pull off with a lot of different builds. I like having a Warlock, and the Devil's Sight really makes it super useful because you can see in it up to 24 meters. So feel free to go Darkness away. Drows will also get a free cast of this at level 5, so that's another nice benefit to playing as a Drow. In the same respect, Dark Vision's nice, but there's a lot of classes that will get Dark Vision themselves. So like the Gloomstalker Ranger, Devil's Sight Warlock. There's a few that will get the Dark Vision, and even a lot of races will also get it, so like Drow and Druger. But Dark Vision is probably like a B tier. It's got some use to it, but again, if you're going to be using Darkness, you're probably going to plan for it elsehow, not using an extra spell to cast. So yeah. Next we got Detect Thoughts. This is pretty good. I think the reason I like Detect Thoughts is it gives you the ability to use it in dialogue. I like whenever spells open that up for you because it's just, whenever you get that unique character dialogue option, like if you're playing as a bard and you see the bard option, you're always going to click that because it just feels good to get that choice that you made allowed you to make that dialogue option. Same thing here. Detect Thoughts, pretty interesting in the way it can work. So I like that. In the same vein, we also have Enhanceability, which now this can be a game changer on harder difficulties because if you fail a ability check, sometimes that's really detrimental. I'm going to put Enhanceability. I don't see a lot of people thinking this is a great spell. And in a nutshell, it's not amazing. But when it comes in handy, this is an absolute run saver. Like if you're doing honor mode, you need to have Enhanceability on your cleric, basically. Because there's some points in the game where this is going to come in huge. Now, there's a nice benefit that's not even talked about in the spell. If you choose the Constitution ability Enhance, you get an extra 7 temporary health points. If you choose the Strength one, you double your carrying capacity. That's huge. And then if you choose the Dexterity one, you half your fall damage. So, nice little extra bonuses, but the big thing here is you get to use this in dialogue options, and that makes it very, very effective because there's some times where you just need that to succeed. So, yeah, S tier for sure. Enlarge or Reduce. This is a pretty decent spell. I think I would put it probably B tier. What's nice about that is you get an increase to your damage, and that stacks or that just stays on top of you. So, Enlarge can be nice. Typically not one that you're going to use a whole lot, but when its situations pop up to use it, it's cool. It's also cool to see large characters. So for that benefit, it's also nice. But again, there's like with level 2 spells, I feel like it's an awkward level because level 3 spells just end up being a whole lot better. Obviously higher level, the better. But even level 1 has a lot of spells that you can upcast and make even stronger, and they're almost just better to use that way. Like Chromatic Orb, Magic Missile. Those are 2 spells that pretty much benefit a lot from upcasting. So some of these spells just are in an awkward place. Next we have Enthrall. I would say this is probably F tier. Similar image to Confusion. Confusion is an amazing spell. Enthrall, force a creature to look at you. Get out of here. There's better use for your actions. It's kind of like the Compel Duel, which is a level 1 spell, which just kind of stinks. This is another one that just kind of, what is it doing? Next we got Flame Blade. Now, again, not a lot of people put love on this one, but Flame Blade has some unique energy. So, Flame Blade, Druid spell, uses Wisdom as his attack roll. You can upcast it to do an insane amount of fire damage. Where this really shines, though, is you can actually get a permanent Flame Blade it'll use strength as its attack modifier, but it does fire damage permanently. So I have a video on my channel on how to get a permanent Flame Blade, so you can go check that out if you're curious. But Flame Blade is actually pretty good. I'm going to put it up in the A tier. For druids that want to focus more on melee attacks, like a Spore Druid, is a pretty good option to give necrotic and fire damage to targets, which is pretty good. Because typically in the later game, there's going to be a lot of enemies that will resist physical damage, so having this is pretty nice. It could be top of the B tier alternatively. I just like the fact that you can make a permanent one. So you have a level 6 druid, upcast it to its level 6, or I guess upcast it to level 6, have it as a companion, put the companion away. I have a full video on it, but then you'll basically get a permanent version that scales off of strength. So you can have the wisdom or the strength version, making it a pretty versatile weapon. Could also go in the B tier, but I'm going to put it in the A tier just because it's pretty good. Next, we got Flaming Sphere. I think this is an amazing spell. I probably put it at the top of the A tier. What I like about Flaming Sphere is, while it does require concentration, any extra targets that you can have on the battlefield to take hits for you is huge. So having this, Spiritual Weapons being another one. Spiritual Weapon is just way better because it's a bonus action, doesn't require concentration. But Flaming Spear is pretty nice. For those that get it, they get it. Flaming Spear is nice, though, because, again, it's going to be able to deal fire damage, which is a nice type to have. There's a lot of targets that will resist fire compared to other, like cold and lightning, but having this is nice, just to have that extra ally on your team to take hits for you. Gust of Wind. Blows a target, knocks them off balance. This is another one that I'll probably put in the C tier, just because if you got Eldritch Blast, same thing, but it deals damage. Gust of Wind is okay. The pushback's okay. It's just okay. Literally just okay. You also get Thunder Wave at level 1, which will do the same thing, but add thunder damage, so it's just not as awesome. Now, Heat Metal. Heat Metal is actually really, really good. I'm going to put it at the top of the A tier. Heat Metal is a concentration. You can use it against targets that have armor. It gives them disadvantage. What's nice about this is it's actually one of the better damage options early game for a Bard. So typically people play Bards on like one of their first few playthroughs, and this is a good option that I don't see as many people talk about, because Cloud of Daggers is fun and also a concentration, but Heat Metal actually gives you a bit more benefit, I would say, than Cloud of Daggers would. So Heat Metal, awesome. I love it. It can be very useful early on, and even later into the game, it actually has some benefit. Now, this is one of the best spells in the entire game. I was watching I looked at some other tier lists for this just to see where other people were ranking these. No one was putting this in the S tier. I genuinely think Hold Person is S tier. Literally every combat encounter, I'm using Hold Person. I'm going to talk about Hold Person because people just don't show it enough love. Hold Person can be upcast, and when you cast Hold Person, they have to do a Constitution saving throw save, but they are taken out of combat for one turn at that point if they fail that save. So Hold Person locks them in place. Some people are saying that it does the check at the start of the turn. It actually is at the end of the target's turn. So Hold Person, they have to wait a whole turn before they can try to break out of it. But the huge benefit here is, let's say you got someone Hold Person upcast on 5 people. They're all locked in place. Your martial classes can go, and any attack within 3 meters is going to be an automatic critical hit. I don't have to talk about how powerful that is, because you should know. Critical hits are huge. So you can just have your paladin run around, smite them all, and critical hits, critical hits, critical hits. Very powerful. A fighter can also just run around, 3 attack, criticals. It is extremely powerful because it makes them so they can't move, act, or react. They're held in place, and you can damage them for a lot of damage with this. So, Hold Person. If you have a Bard that has the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, they can attack targets and then cast Hold Person with a high spell save DC, basically to the point that no one's going to resist it. So, I could talk all day about Hold Person. I think this is easily the best spell that we've talked about so far. Next, we got Invisibility. Invisibility is pretty decent. I would say it's probably like an A tier. It has some uses where, like, especially if you're someone that wants to do like a solo challenge run, it's extremely useful for just bypassing certain things. You have to be smart with how you use Invisibility. I want to mention that. And there is also a greater Invisibility spell later on. I think it's a pretty good spell overall. Just Invisibility, it's good. Being able to hide away is useful, especially on certain builds. Like if you get an Assassin Rogue, it's just flawless. Next, we got Knock. Fun fact about Knock, if you're using Gale and he's lock picking, he'll be like, I think that there's a spell that can do this. And he kind of says it in a funny way. So Knock, I would say, is probably top of the B tier, even up to A. Another Knock is Eldritch Blasting the door away. I like that as well. But Knock, it can be good. There's actually some useful interactions that you can have in like the Sorcerer's Sundries, where you can get bypass certain areas that are really challenging that wouldn't normally be as, if you didn't have Knock, they would have been a whole lot more difficult. So it's a very good spell, honestly. Although you may have a rogue that's a lock picker and just want to prefer to use that, that's fine too. Lesser Restoration, meh. It just removes poison. It's okay. There's potions that'll do that. And the fact that we can open up our inventory and move things around just makes this less useful. So I would say that's probably C tier. Magic Weapon, I would probably say B tier. All this does is adds +1 to damage and attack rolls. So you're a little bit more likely, 5% more likely to hit your attacks, and you deal 1 more damage. Dope! It's meh. Meef's Acid Arrow. This one's okay. I think that like acid damage is nice, but it's a large area. I just feel like you're almost better off doing like Cloud of Daggers at that point, personally. It's a decent spell, but we have so many better options here that we'd honestly just rather do. Mirror Image. Also another spell that people don't put enough love on. I would say this is an S tier. The reason being, so hear me out on this one. Mirror Image, increase your armor class by +3, +3, +3 for a +9. So, let's say you're a sorcerer and you have twinned haste, and you twin it to yourself and someone else. That'll give you +2 armor class. This will give you +9 armor class. So you get a nice +11 armor class. Where that comes in handy is holding your concentration on your twinned haste. So this is pretty much like if you have haste, you want to have Mirror Image up, possibly if you can. The +9 to armor class makes it so that you're much less likely to be hit. And on top of that, it's just nice to have like almost 40 armor class as a sorcerer. So holding concentration on spells, this is the game changer for that, especially if you're doing like haste. So it could be alternatively like top of A tier. Somewhere's there, though. Not enough people are putting love on Mirror Image. Next, we got Misty Step. Easy S tier. This just teleports you to somewhere so that you can see as a bonus action. If you can take Misty Step, I feel like everyone should have it. It's just that good. So, if you're a sorcerer, you need to get away quickly. Misty Step your way out. You can even Misty Step into a room. Like, it's just that good. And the fact, if it was an action, it would be probably F tier, but it's a bonus action, so S tier. Moonbeam. This one's good. Radiant damage, up to 20 damage. It's not bad. It'll deal extra to undead. I feel like this is just a fun spell to use in general, too. And with level 2, there's not many that are pure damage. Like, we got Scorching Ray, Moonbeam, kind of Heat Metal. There's not a lot of damage spells here, so having one damage spell that's Radiant is nice for any character that doesn't have access to Radiant damage. It's not a bad one to have. Pass Without Trace. This is another one that's like, okay. I just feel like taking something like Mirror Image is just better. So there's a few spells like Blindness, Barkskin, and Pass Without Trace that are just, and Crown of Madness, I guess. Those 4 are like, meh. There's something else that does it better. Phantasmal Force. This is okay. I'd probably put in the B tier. Damage dealing spell. But again, we have better options for damage dealing spells here with like Scorching Ray and Moonbeam even. Prayer of Healing. Pray to heal all targets you can see. Where this really shines is if you have a cleric that has, let's say, the Blade Ward gauntlets. They'll give Blade Ward to all targets. And Bless. You can just free bless everyone with healing. It's okay. I feel like the healing word is almost better. And then you get one, a cleric will get one that's a bonus action later on. This one uses action. So B to C tier. Healing is not your best option in Baldur's Gate 3. More damages. So, yeah. Protection from poison. I'll probably put it F tier, actually. Protection from poison is okay. I can't think of many options in the game where you really need that. And if you do, there's potions. So F tier. Ray of Enfeeblement. This is another one that's like, I'd probably put C tier because it's like it's okay. You're just better off doing some other spells, in all honesty. So I think that just it belongs to be in the C tier. Um, it's one of those spells again that there's other things that do it better. So we'll go with those. Next we got Scorching Ray, which is fire damage, 3 bolts. It can be upcast for more bolts. These all have attack rolls, so if you have spells that benefit from attack rolls, it's pretty good, actually. I think that this is not a bad damage spell option. Fire damage is okay, too. I still don't think it's as good as some other spells here, like Hold Person, Darkness, Enhance Ability, Misty Step. You get way more bang for your buck from those than you would Scorching Ray. I might move Scorching Ray around there. It's hard to rank these within the tier. I just put them in the tiers for this one because it's nuanced, very nuanced. Like the Scorching Ray is a good damage spell overall, though. I think it's pretty great. Next we got See Invisibility. This I think goes alongside these here. See Invisibility will help you in the Sorcerer's Sundries as well, so it allows you to see a chest that you normally wouldn't be able to see. I think that it's situational, but when you can use it, it's pretty good. There's also some enemies that will go invisible that are friggin' annoying to deal with, so you can take that to not be annoyed as much with them. Next we get Shatter. This is interesting. It's like Chromatic Orb, but an area of effect Chromatic Orb. So it deals damage in an area. It's thunder damage, which is okay damage type. I'd probably put it in the B tier. It's just not a amazing spell, but it's not as bad as some people say it is because area of effect's kind of nice. And any inorganic targets will fail their saving throw against this. So more chance for damage. Yay! Silence. Silence! I kill you. We're going to put that in the A tier. I think that silence is good. Especially if you can find like that one crisp spot to throw it. It can be pretty effective. It stops the targets from casting spells, which is really nice. And it also stops thunder damage. So silence can actually, if you put it on yourself and someone's trying to shatter you, not happening. There's some points in the game actually where prevention from taking thunder damage is pretty big. So it might go right around there. It's hard to rank, again, hard to rank these within the tiers. Next, we got Spike Growth. Now, what makes Spike Growth so great is we can actually cast this with, if you got a Druid on your team, I think Druid is one of the most underrated classes in this game. Spike Growth is not only crowd control, but damage. It's like Cloud of Daggers, but slows people down. Where Spike Growth really benefits, it has a larger area than Cloud of Daggers, but as a Druid at level 7, you get a level 4 spell that allows you to summon a Woodwode, and they can cast this. So I wouldn't recommend that you cast it. I would recommend if you got a Druid that their summon casts this. It's pretty great for that reason alone. If it was not with the Woodwode, I'd probably put it A tier because it is a really great spell. Crowd control and damage is always welcomed. It's like a Blade Barrier or Insect Plague, but lower level basically. What makes it nice though is the fact that you can have a summon that can also summon, but that summon can use this too. Yay. It's pretty good. Next we got Spiritual Weapon. This is probably I would say it's probably the second best. Darkness may be a little bit better, but Spiritual Weapon, bonus action. It's a spiritual weapon that will take hits for you, and it'll hit the enemy for you. It's honestly really good. You can summon in wherever you want. Spiritual Weapon, there's many to choose from. There's tridents, there's swords, there's big bonk hammers. Spiritual Weapon is really great, and the fact that it's a bonus action gives you something to do with a cleric. If you don't want to heal with Healing Word, Spiritual Weapon, pop that bad boy in. And any spell that allows you to like Flaming Spear, same thing, that takes hits for your team, because who cares if it gets one shot? That's just one shot your team wouldn't take. And if it was going to one shot this, it was probably going to hit your team pretty hard. So even if all this is a meat shield, hey, that's pretty good. Warding Bond. Warding Bond's pretty decent. I would probably put in the B tier. It's situational at best. Sanctuary is kind of like a similar deal, but better, I would say. Sanctuary can be really, really nice. So we'll put that in the B tier. And then finally we got Web. Web will be a great crowd control, but a nice little bonus to Web is you can actually cast this and then jump into it. So if you were going to take a lot of fall damage, cast Web, jump into the web. You'll be saved. Little interaction with that spell that not a lot of people know about, so just wanted to talk about that. But there's the level 2 spells in Baldur's Gate 3 ranked on a tier list. I did this video in under 30 minutes, so I'm happy with that. I feel like I gave a decent amount of thoughts on these. The best, obviously, Hold Person is incredibly powerful. This is probably the best spell in level 2. It can be upcast. It can be cast as a bonus action with the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. Extremely powerful. Spiritual weapon, great crowd control, tank, damage dealer. It does it all. Darkness, enough said. Darkness is amazing, especially if you have a warlock or anyone can benefit from having enemies blinded. Enhance ability, underrated. It's used in dialogue options, and I typically try to take any of the spells that you can use in dialogue because it's just fun to be able to use those. Misty Step, survivability, it's huge. And Spike Growth, since we can cast that as a bonus action. So there it is. Those are my level 2 spells ranked on a tier list in Baldur's Gate 3. If you found this video fun or useful, please hit that subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.